There's more! I'm back! CGI shit!
I rest my case.
It was fucking horrible!
Hey guys, what's up? It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome to another opening night. Now, as of this recording, Star Wars Episode 1, our review, has just dropped, and I figured throughout the time we anticipate Episodes 2 and 3, I would start doing a series of opening nights dedicated to Star Wars-themed content. And with that being said, it's mostly stuff I've actually never seen. This is stuff I've actually been attended to watch, but I've never gotten the chance to because I don't really use Disney Plus much. But with that said, I finally sat down and watched one of the first, I'm doing this in chronological order, Star Wars content on Disney Plus. Now, just a little rule, I'm not going to be talking about the Clone Wars, I'm not going to be talking about Rebels. I have already seen those shows, and those shows are spectacular. Those are really good Star Wars series in a whole. But with that said, I figured we'd start from the very beginning, literally, and with the most controversial of the current state of Star Wars, that being The Acolyte. The Acolyte is the Disney Plus original series that takes place 100 years, 200 years before Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and has been the most divisive of Star Wars. This is what many have said killed the franchise. It killed it, it's dead, it's never coming back, it did so much damage. But what's my take on it? Well, let's start with a plot synopsis. Essentially, this takes place again about 100 to 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. And in this case, we are in the Old Republic. We see the Jedi Order, we see all the Jedi essentially in their prime, but apparently there is someone currently hunting Jedi. And there is a huge investigation on what the hell's going on with that. In doing so, they of course uncover the Jedi a very conspiring plot that involves witches and involves two twins and essentially the potential return of the dark side of the Force. That's sort of the basic plot synopsis because I don't want to spoil too much. I probably will throughout this review, but in terms of just the basics, there you go. But what's my take on it? Is it as bad? Is it the worst thing Star Wars has ever done? Now, I'm a very biased guy when it comes to Star Wars. I'm not as hardcore into the religious addiction as most people are. And in my opinion, The Acolyte, I'm going to be a total minority on this, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't a disaster. It's interesting because there is things in this show I relatively thought were really good. I thought, for one thing, cinematography, production design, action scenes, pretty damn good. Creature designs is great. I love how the Jedi look in this era. I love, like, the different creatures and the different ways the new ships are. I really like the lightsaber fights. But in terms of the story, which is the main thing a lot of people complain about, I didn't mind it. To go into some details in just terms of characters. The main character is, I can't remember who the actor's name is, but he's sort of our Qui-Gon Jinn, our Jedi Master who has to figure things out. Great actor. Really good guy. I really like this Jedi Knight and what he is all about in terms of the story and how he connects to everything. I find probably my favorite Jedi is actually the alien girl, like with the two green lightsabers in one moment. I thought she was the coolest character. I like the Wookiee Jedi. You know, hey, nothing wrong with Wookiee Jedis. I used to read the expanded lore a lot. And then, in terms of just the other Jedis, they're just cannon fodder. They're not really anything in particular. Now, when it comes to the twins that are sort of, again, as Lucas said, poetry, it rhymes. Everyone rhymes with the last one. A lot of people have had the biggest issue with because they feel like it really devalues Anakin as the chosen one, as the prophecy that was foretold. And in that sense, I'm going to be honest, it doesn't really do that to a degree. Like, it's still awkward that there's another set of twins that are born from the Force before Anakin, but this is not the doing of the Sith. This is the doing of these witches, which, again, a lot of people have had a problem with. I didn't see the issue, honestly. I think the biggest issue is that how this was like a secret power only the Sith were able to unlock, and to that extent I understand some fans being a little upset, but the way it's structured and the way it ends, it doesn't really neglect Anakin to his eventual return. And on top of that, not many Jedi by the end of it know of this. In fact, a lot of them that know the full core of it are killed off. And I do like to some degree that we see very early on how the Jedi were doomed to fail from the beginning because of all their high and mighty egos of protecting what essentially is what caused their demise. They basically had to sucker up to the government, to the Senate, to the Republic, in order to stay relevant on Coruscant. Because if they could not back their asses up, then it's clear the Senate is like, we don't need the Jedi, you're a problem. I think it's fascinating. It's sort of I guess in metaphorical terms, just the symbolism of how religious types try to stay relevant within certain governments, and what kind of bullshit they come up with. And I do like the fact that the Jedi, to some degree, are problematic. I do like the fact that they have, in a way, lost their way. It's a big theme that goes throughout the next few hundred years of the Jedi Order, and it's kind of interesting to that regard. But there's one character, I guess I could go into spoilers at this point, that I know pops up at the very end, a little cameo to set up the next season, and it's nothing. Darth Plagueis. Yes, we see Darth Plagueis long before he trains the likes of Palpatine. And I guess in a way, this is where he discovered the idea of using the Force to influence the midichlorians by seeing these two. And I think that's what they're meant to be. They are meant to be the inspiration, the two twins, for Darth Plagueis to create life eventually in 200 years. That makes sense. And a lot of people say, well, again, the Jedi knew about these vergences in the Force. These are regular human beings that probably died way before that mark hit, so easily forgotten about to some degree. But then on top of that, a lot of people say, well, what about Ki-Adi-Mundi? Because he's in there, and we have to make a big deal about a guy with a penis for a head. To be honest, I don't think Ki-Adi-Mundi knew too much about what was going on. So again, I think a lot of people had exaggerated the hate for that. I didn't see a problem with it. I thought it was interesting that they put Ki-Adi-Mundi in there to kind of retcon his age a little bit. But yeah, it's just nice to see that connection eventually to Episode 1. Do I wish that the movie, or this show, was a bit further back to have it make a little bit more sense? Yeah. But it doesn't, again, really mess up too much of what we are presented here. The main thing I will say is that the fight scenes are actually pretty fun. The lightsaber duels are really great. A step up from what we've seen the last 10 years of Star Wars since The Force Awakens. This is really a step up in what they can do with the lightsabers. I love our new Sith Lord, our Sith wannabe. I wouldn't even consider him a Sith. Even though he declares himself one, he's a wannabe Sith, meaning he's not fully embraced the dark side. I think there is conflict with this character, which I really like, but I love his look. I love it's very Kylo Ren-esque, so it's almost like Kylo Ren took inspiration. And I love how his helmet can actually deflect lightsabers and turn them off. It has a defect. Because, outside of the Magna Guard staff, we don't get much lightsaber kryptonite to a degree. And I think this was a good addition. Do I wish there was more of this? Yeah, I think that would be cool for the Sith to use. But, you know, hey, maybe it's a rare mineral that can only be found on this certain little planet that's lost. I don't know. But it is cool to see. That fight scene in the forest was actually really fun. Now, in terms of what I don't like, because I do agree, this show is one of the weaker entries of Star Wars, despite me having a good time with it. I will say, probably the biggest issue with this series, it's boring. 80% of it is boring. Because, much like Obi-Wan, this did not need to be a TV show. This should have been a movie. If it was a movie, it would have been faster paced, but they drag this out. And I'm not a fan of it. I don't like how slow-paced it is. I don't like how there's just so much filler and so much padding. So I think the biggest issue with this show is that it's not that it's bad for the sake of lore destroying, it's the fact that it's boring. And that's the biggest crime you could commit with this, is that there is really, it's so slow. The pacing is off, and that's where I have an issue with it. I think about, 75% of the time, this show is incredibly boring. And that's where I have an issue with it. The pacing, the editing. It could have used some work. And I think there is also just, again, there's one or two things I'm like, you could have cut that out and that would have been fine. But again, I think it's also just a matter of the hate comes from people who just can't accept new Star Wars, and they have not for the last 40 years since Return of the Jedi. It has been a constant battle with certain fans, and I'm not really interested in that era of the fandom. But for me, this show is meh. This show is average. It's got some great moments. The Acolyte overall, it has moments of greatness. It's well shot. It's got great actors. It's got great fight scenes, a great suspenseful, interesting story, but lacks due to pacing, lacks due to the audience's patience, and lacks in terms of things that aren't properly set up. And to a degree, it is a shame we don't get a Season 2 to some extent, but it's probably for the best given how expensive this was and how it was structured. I think it's fine the way it is. Is there ways to rectify the series to where it can kind of make sense in the canon? You can technically kind of fix this, but it's going to take a lot of work that I don't think Lucasfilm has any interest to do visually. Maybe in a novel, maybe and so on, but you got to work with what you work with. So overall, The Acolyte, I'm going to give about a 4 or 5 out of 10. I can't remember what my original rating was on Instagram because I was posting there. But, by the way, subscribe to my Instagram. But, to the point, it's a 4 or 5 out of 10. It's got some interesting moments, but it's a little boring. This is one of those shows that I'd rather watch clips of YouTube and then never watch it fully again. But did I enjoy it? Was I entertained? Yeah. Was I bored? Yeah. It's not really that special. I think I probably ranked it a little higher than most fans and critics have of the show, but honestly, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. There is some things to be worthwhile about, but not much. So, there's my quick thoughts on The Acolyte for an opening night. Just something I wanted to get out there for you guys as Star Wars is being worked on. But on top of that, we got more coming. I think next up, I'm planning to review Tales of the Jedi. Again, I'm going in order of the stuff I have not seen, and it's pretty exciting to watch. So, let me know your thoughts on The Acolyte in the comments below. Don't forget to support our Patreon. Just $1 more will get you early access to all of our content as well as other special features. And I will see you next time on the next opening night when we take a look at the continuing Clone Wars era with Tales of the Jedi, which I am actually looking forward to watching. So until next time, guys, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. It's BigJackFilms signing off saying, yeah, maybe you'll like The Acolyte, but I doubt you will. But with that said, that's all I got. Until next time, take it easy.